If you wanted to get into the United States illegally, now's the time to do it. But if you do, make sure you're wearing a mask unless you're Joe Biden. Also, we're going to talk about President Biden's top day one priorities. Hey guys, I'm Jason Wesley, and this is not a podcast. So Chris Wallace of Fox News said that the inauguration speech was the best he had ever heard.
I've been listening to these inaugural addresses since 1961. John F. Kennedy, Ask Not. I thought this was the best inaugural address I ever heard.
Apparently it wasn't the best that Bill Clinton ever heard because he fell asleep. Or maybe it's because he's 74 years old. Oh wait, Donald Trump is also 74 years old. There was a stark contrast between the inauguration of over 80 million votes with Joe Biden and President Trump's inauguration 4 years ago. And I'm not even talking about size. Let's reminisce from Inauguration Day 2016, shall we?
Burning cars and smashed windows. A small group of protesters dressed in black, their faces covered, armed with hammers and bricks. Facing off with thousands of officers on site, the chaotic scene just blocks outside the secure area of the inauguration and parade route. During President Trump's speech, several demonstrators were escorted out of the area. Several officers injured during the protest today, and more than 100 people arrested. Similar demonstrations across the country. Arrest outside Trump Tower, New York City. A human chain across San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. From Phoenix to Houston to Chicago, people protesting the country's new president on his first day in office.
Remember back when the Betsy Ross flag was racist and Nike had to pull their shoes because of the symbolism? But somehow it made its way back to Joe Biden's inauguration and it's not racist anymore. Remember when the national anthem was racist and everybody felt like they had to kneel? And it was so racist that they had to start singing the black national anthem at events. But now it's a new day, a new time of healing and unity. We're long past the erection, according to Chuck Schumer. And no, I'm not speaking with an Asian accent.
There will be a trial, and when that trial ends, senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the insurrection.
But good luck Chuck wasn't alone in his excitement. Here's Anderson Cooper with CNN.
But just 2 weeks ago, he did incite an insurrection on the Capitol.
So President Biden's first executive order was one requiring mask wearing. That was a mandate, but not really a mandate, even though according to a Pew Research study in 2020 that found that over 85% of Americans regularly wear a mask.
It's requiring, as I said all along, where I have authority, mandating masks be worn, social distancing be kept on federal property, on interstate commerce, etc. So this is the first one I'm signing.
Accordingly, to protect the federal workforce and individuals interacting with the federal workforce, and to ensure the continuity of government services and activities, on-duty or on-site federal employees, on-site federal contractors, or other individuals in federal buildings and on federal lands should all wear masks, maintain physical distance, and adhere to the public health measures as provided in CDC guidelines. Now, he does say should all wear masks rather than require all to wear masks. But there are all sorts of things you should do, like eat healthy, exercise regularly, stop texting your ex. But those are all more suggestions than requirements, because within hours of President Biden signing the executive order, he broke his own requirement. Kind of like when Governor Gavin Newsom of California had a dinner party at the French Laundry, violating his own policy, and no one was wearing a mask. Or when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi got her hair done and she was caught not wearing a mask, but then said she was set up.
As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for the setup. I don't wear a mask when I'm washing my hair. Do you wear a mask when you're washing your hair? I've been there many times. I always have a mask. Since we passed the bill, I always have a mask. Now I just had my hair washed. I just came out of the bowl. Now I just had my hair washed, and that's all I'm going to say.
I was set up. Then you're not supposed to get set up.
But what actually changes? What happens if you're caught not wearing your mask? Here's Dr. Mark Graber, constitutional law professor at the University of Maryland Law School.
What is the penalty? Who enforces it?
The penalty is a fine. The enforcement can be done by one of two kinds of people. First, if you're at a national park, the mask mandate can be enforced by any federal employee at the national park. They can say to the park ranger, in addition to your other duties, enforce the mask mandate.
Okay, so you're coming into law enforcement, you're not wearing your mask, and now there's a mandate. Is it the, hey, put your mask on, and if you put it on, I'll let you go kind of thing? Or how does it work? Because I feel like it might cause issues if someone's like, I'm not putting it on, I'm not putting it on. And then versus somebody who says, all right, I'll put it on, don't give me a ticket.
Here is not a matter of law, a matter of common sense. I suspect the enforcement officials across the United States are going to say, please put on your mask. They're going to assume people forget. They may not even know they're on federal property. In theory, you could be fined. In practice, we expect that the park ranger will say, please put on your mask, and only issue fines for people who are not cooperating.
Understood.
Another day one priority of the Biden administration was to halt construction of the more than 400 miles of border wall at the U.S.-Mexico border. This made a caravan of people really happy to make a run for the border. Thankfully, the previous administration worked with governments in Central and South America and already had security measures in place, so the caravan dissolved in Guatemala. Now a second caravan is set to leave. A second migrant caravan is poised to depart Honduras on Monday, just days after the security forces in Guatemala stopped the first caravan of 2021 during a series of violent clashes in which asylum seekers were met with tear gas and batons. Guatemalan television network Televisiete reports that at least 3,000 migrants will plan to meet in the Honduran city of San Pedro Sula, a part of an attempt to cross into Guatemala and enter Mexico before proceeding to the southern United States border, despite calls from the Biden administration asking them to reconsider. And now a third migrant caravan, the network also learned, will reportedly take off from El Salvador on February 14th. Fortunately, unlike the left-wing activist outlet Now This News and BLM groups that want to abolish ICE, President Biden's pick for DHS chief, Alejandro Mayorkas, says he will not abolish ICE.
Senator, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement play critical roles in the federal government, and I would not abolish them.
Unfortunately, although he will not abolish ICE, the Biden administration did put an immediate 100-day pause on removal. Accordingly, and pending the completion of review set forth in Section A, I am directing an immediate pause on removals of any non-citizen with a final order of removal, except as noted below, for 100 days to go into effect as soon as practical and no later than January 22nd, 2021. Tucker Carlson has since obtained an email sent January 21st to ICE officers in Texas that show how the order is to be enacted.
As of midnight tonight, stop all removals. This includes Mexican bus runs, charter flights, and commercial removals until further notice. All cases are to be considered no significant likelihood of removal in foreseeable future. In other words, stop sending people here illegally back to the country of origin. The official goes on to say this, and we're quoting, "Release them all immediately. No sponsor available is not acceptable any longer." The official notes in the email that he is just, quote, the messenger explaining the directive. It wasn't his idea, it was Joe Biden's.
So, good times ahead, unless, of course, you live in a border city or a sanctuary city. And speaking of sanctuary, Biden ends Trump census policy, ensuring all persons living in the U.S. are counted. It's actually called the Executive Order on Ensuring a Lawful and Accurate Enumeration and Apportionment Pursuant to the Decennial Census, which basically means that all illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants or unauthorized immigrants or anyone that comes to the United States and stays in illegally via illegal entry will also be counted in the U.S. Census with U.S. citizens. Now, why would this be advantageous for the Democrats to do something like this? Well, the short answer is for power and control. The long legal answer has to do with redistricting and representation in Washington. Accordingly, the executive branch has always determined the population of each state for purposes of congressional representation without regard to whether its residents are in lawful immigration status. Then it goes on to say, the census and apportionment processes are enshrined in the Constitution. The 14th Amendment apportions seats in the House of Representatives among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state. But the rest of the 14th Amendment states that, but when the right to vote at any election is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged, except for participation in rebellion or other crime, the basis of representation therein shall be reduced in the proportion which the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. Of course, later the age was changed to 18 and women were given the right to vote in the 19th and 26th Amendment. Now, Section 2 of the 14th Amendment repealed the 3/5 clause, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the original Constitution, which counted enslaved people as 3/5 of a person for the purpose of apportioning congressional representation. But let's go back to the 14th Amendment the Biden administration is quoting. It's the other crime of Section 2 that we need to take a look at. As outlined in the CRS report for Congress, the law prohibits aliens from entering or attempting to enter the United States at any time or place place which has not been designated by an immigration officer, i.e. a port of entry, it also prohibits an alien from eluding immigration officers. According to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, the first offense is a misdemeanor, not to be confused with misdemeanor. So when you allow illegal immigration and count every resident on the census, whether they're a U.S. citizen or not, it increases the total number of representatives in Washington based on the total number of the population, thereby increasing the power and control of the government on the rest of the population. According to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement data, the sanctuary states are California, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington. I'll give you one guess as to what all of those states have in common. All of them are Democrat-ran blue states, which is why I said earlier the short answer is for power and control. When President Biden made his oath of office, it was to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. But when you make executive orders like these on your first day in office, it makes me question what you're preserving, who you're protecting, and what you're defending, because it doesn't look like it's the U.S. Constitution.
Will you be mine?